Good morning, world. This is Steve Rao on Pod TV's World Edition. Starting next week, we will be on Roku TV network. I'm the host of this show, and I greet you live from the All America city of Morrisville in North Carolina, the United States of America. And today, I'm here to report to you that we are in a state of war in the Ukraine. Today, February 25th, we have seen the city falling soon, as the United States intelligence officials predict. Russian forces have also captured the Chernobyl nuclear power plant and an island in the Black Sea. They're trying to take down the Western-backed government and replace it with its own. And more than 130 Ukrainians have been killed in the first day of this crisis. Sanctions proposed will block all of Russia's largest banks from transactions with the U.S. and virtually every major part of its economy. This will have an immediate financial impact, not only on Russia, but the world, and we'll be talking about that today. There were large protests in Russia. People are very scared about the situation, which is very dire, and an emergency meeting today will take place between NATO and the military UN Security Council. We have plenty to talk about today as this crisis continues to unfold. And as I said yesterday, we will also be talking about, or 2 days ago, the sanctions, and are we being tough enough? And why is Putin not backing down? What is driving this aggressive leader of Russia to make such an aggressive move on Ukraine? And what will it mean for the future of the world order, diplomacy, and the notion that we would not invade other nations to expand our own territories? The last time this was happened was in World War II, during that time when Adolf Hitler invaded the Sudetenland and Czechoslovakia and other nations to grow the Third Reich and make Germany all one powerful nation, taking for granted and not even honoring the freedoms of the citizens of democracies. We'll be talking about this today with our special panel. We have with us today Shaquille Latimer from Down Under, Chris Getkin, Mark Lee, and Nick Paladiva and others. Let's get started.
Yeah, definitely some amazing things that are happening in the world today, as we did to see an entire airport get destroyed and a lot of other things that are going on over there in Ukraine. I actually had a quick question for Chris. I don't know which direction you were planning to take this and everything, but I was watching on another news report yesterday, and this is actually down your alley. There was some concerns about cybersecurity, even cybersecurity here in the U.S. from what I was watching and everything. So as one that used to be in that field, I was wondering your take on that, because as I was watching, they were saying that we might need to be concerned about everything from our water to some of our other supplies, even here in the West, in the United States, and other parts of the globe that might be closer to Russia and all of that, like, of course, England, France, and even Romania and Poland. But I'm just wondering your take on that, as one that I have learned has been involved in that space.
So let me tell you something about the United States of America, at least as it's been in the past. The United States of America, Americans trust. Believe it or not, even with everything that's going on today, the divisiveness that's going on, the idea that it's one group against another group. People are moving to states literally that are communities that believe like them, which completely destroys diversity in my world. But still, there's an element of trust out there that we do trust other people. And I'm going to tell you two things. One is that at one point I went to a CPA for my taxes, and as I'm crossing the room to go to him, I noticed his router, the main router of his whole area, is located on a desk that anybody can get to. And I said, this is about the dumbest thing I've ever seen. You're going through people's taxes. You have a router out there that anybody can get to. He says, well, we don't believe that people would actually do that. I said, people do that in a second. So cybersecurity to me is very, very, very lax here in the United States. Let me give you another example. There's a company out there, Know Before, right? KNOW, I think, BE, and then number 4. I think it's something like that, Know Before. It's run by a guy, it was run by a guy, I don't know if it still is, who was put in jail on a federal conviction for hacking the Department of Defense, a guy by the name of Mitnick. And Mitnick he's a thief. He's a thief. He's a proven felon, and he's been in federal prison. But you know something? He came out, and federal government agencies are paying him to go into their systems and see how secure they are. Now, how stupid is that in my eyes as a cybersecurity guy? I'm going to have a federal, an ex-prisoner, federal conviction on hacking charges go into my Department of Defense and whatever else. I worked for Social Security Administration. They were going to hire this guy, and they showed it to me because they wanted the money. I said, I'm not giving you the money. I'm not giving you the money to hire this guy. This guy's a crook. He's a thief. And I remember the associate commissioner came to me and said, Chris, you're getting really passionate about this stuff. I said, I don't believe you're doing this. Social Security Administration takes care. If they hack the Social Security Administration, one successful hack, they get $1 trillion worth of stuff. I mean, it's unbelievable how dumb we are as a nation to sit back and say we do not have a cybersecurity policy in place, both in the government for data aspects and private industry. And I'll tell you something, it's going to come and it's going to bite us in the butt big time. We sit back and we go, our gas stuff is good, electric stuff is good, whatever stuff, nuclear stuff is good. Man, one successful hack and it's over. Yeah. Let me tell you something right now. I can hack into every single one of your accounts. I can do it. I can hack into every single one. All I need is an email account. Guess what? I got it. So all I have to do is send you something. It's called avarice, right? I send you something that says, hey, you just won a free iPad. And many of you sit there and say, I'm not going to click on that. But some of you might. And all I need is one person to click on that, just one. And I'm in. And once I'm in, I got access to everything you have. And that's what happened.
Wow. That's pretty exciting, Chris. And, coming from a person that actually called the Ukraine situation correct, we have to listen to you now. Because the thing is, remember, he said on international TV in front of David M. Walker that Russia was going to invade Ukraine. And this is way before it took place. He almost came to the exact date. He goes, it'll be a Thursday, a couple of weeks from now, and I was going like, wow.
He was very much on top of it.
This tells me that your former affiliates in the National Security Administration, you must have a direct pipeline. You're being quiet about it. And I did notice our views are up 2,000% in Arlington, Virginia. So it's quite possible that we are being, listen, you're the voice of the, what do they call it, the National Security Administration.
Like
we're being monitored what you're trying to say and everything.
Let's start, first of all. Well, anyway,
how do we know he's not a spy?
Let's start with Sasha. Let's start with Sasha Star then and talk about the military invasion, what's going on, taking over Chernobyl. Just what is going on in your mind today, Sasha? I mean, seeing this unfold. And then I want to go to Shaquille Latimer to talk about the economic impact in his opinion. And of course, Chris and Mark and everybody. But Sasha, what are your thoughts today about what's going on?
My thoughts are that when I lived in Odessa, where I was born in Ukraine, one of the most important holidays was April 10th of each year. It was a celebration of lifting the Odessa's occupation by Germans in 1944. And since that time, Odessa was never occupied by any foreign power, except that it's happening yesterday and going on still today, and will continue to go on. And you could imagine how I feel about this. Now, I was, but by the way, I want to tell you some kind of local Toronto news. One, no Russian channel is available on Roku. Gone. Done. Number two, I was yesterday in the bank. There was a lineup of people submitting payments to support Ukrainian army. People were transferring $200, $1,000. Somebody transferred $3,500. No, I've never seen anything less than 200 while I was there. In the evening, there was a huge meeting in support of Ukraine in Toronto. There were probably close to 100,000 people, and not just Ukrainians, but all Torontonians went to join on this meeting. And now today, I was listening to some radio station in Dost, which is very popular Russian language anti-Putin station. And they were saying that the sanctions are crippling big time Russia, because think about the all the airplanes that Russia is using. They're all Boeings and Airbuses, and guess the engines are all made by General Electric, Rolls-Royce. There will be no service of this machinery, and Russians, they don't have anything on that caliber. All this railway trains that they've been produced by Germans, Siemens, they all will be halted very soon because there is no way to service. It's a very sophisticated machinery, and Russia cannot service it. One journalist, Mr. Gordon, on one of the talk shows, he asked, there was a picture of Mr. Putin, and he asked, Mr. Putin, you have, what is it, Swiss watches? You have Italian suit? You have your socks are from France? What Russian do you have on you? What is it? Nothing. Russia is not producing anything whatsoever except missiles, arms. That's all what Russia is producing.
I have Russian heart.
Sorry?
I have Russian heart.
Yeah. Russian heart, yeah. While it's still working, yeah. That's okay.
Yeah, you talked about that Russian heart. I was actually also seeing that they were doing a lot of a major blood drive in the Ukraine as well, as they were preparing for to dig in to the war. And I also understand that they have been encouraged to use Molotov cocktails and to resist as much as possible. And Sasha, I was just wondering, because I've also heard people speculating that the Ukraine is just one of several stops, that Putin may be also having his eyes on Poland and other places, but I don't know that he expected to get as much resistance as he is getting from the Ukraine citizens and the Ukraine army. But I was just wondering your take on the global nature of this, and whether some of the other Baltic nations should also be looking at him, possibly having them in their in his eyesights.
Putin fell in a trap which he constructed himself. Nick, you know opening traps in chess?
Yeah.
When you're tempted to eat some kind of a pawn and a piece, but then you get punished severely. So Putin got into his own trap. He doesn't know how to get rid of this problem now. He wants to talk to Zelensky in Minsk, in Belarus, and so on to finish all that. That's not going to happen. There is no peace with Russia. Every Ukrainian soldier who stepped on the territory of Ukraine will be killed, destroyed, out. Get back to Russia, never invade any other country. So I don't think that Poland and the Baltic states should be scared of Russia, because Russia will never take over Ukraine. It's just not going to happen. Okay, they can take Kiev. I understand that. But, you know, I saw the picture today of former president of Ukraine, Mr. Poroshenko, who speaks actually very good English. He was with the Kalashnikov in his hands. And he joined just average brigade, which are now so many are being created in Ukraine. There are no regular Ukrainian army. They have very little ammunition. Yes, they have some Kalashnikovs, they have some other stuff, but they don't have the troop carriers and artillery or anything else. But they say, we don't need that. We are going to fight from house to house. from
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Hey, Nick, just really quickly and everything, and I do want to hear from Shaquille about the economic impact, but believe it or not, this entire battle, not just people watching and people from different parts of that region living in this area where we live at, the Triangle, had an impact, but it also had an impact on one of the organizations that I belong to, because ironically, on the day of the invasion, the Carolina Theater was doing a performance of the Swan Lake being done by the Russian Ballet Theater, which
Oh,
actually
right.
is a company that is based in the Ukraine. And the dance company is made up of young dancers from Armenia, Belarus, Japan, Kyrgyzstan, Poland, Slovenia, Russia,
Right.
and the Ukraine. And actually, the company is actually based in the Ukraine and has offices, I think, in New York and Los Angeles. So they went ahead with the performance, and were actually, a lot of the folks were saying that they were in unity with the citizens of the Ukraine. So they did go ahead with the performance, and I'm very proud of our relatively new director in the stance that he took on that, and he actually did make a opening speech beforehand and all along those lines. But I just found that interesting, being on the board that I got that letter on yesterday after our meeting.
Wow.
Yeah, and interesting. There's a lot of people from Russia that do not support Putin and all this stuff. And there was 1,800
Yeah.
people arrested in Russia. A lot of them in St. Petersburg, which I visited. A beautiful city, really nice people. But they don't support the government. But what happens if you don't support the government? You get arrested, like Gary Kasparov, which Sasha.
Yeah.
This
Hey,
dude
real,
went to jail.
let's go to Shaquille Latimer real quick and talk
Yeah.
about economics. So, I mean, first of all, Shaquille, lots of sanctions going on, but some people say that, sanctions are tougher, but they're not forcing Putin to back down. But what is your take economically as an investor? Do you think this is something that's going to be long term, or will we recover from this? And it's
Well, maybe that's what Putin's plan was the whole time. He's going to hope that there are sanctions on energy prices, and he's got long futures contracts. Maybe that's maybe that was the strategy. Look, I think that energy prices around Europe are going to experience a lot more volatility. I think they're probably headed up. But ultimately, these sanctions that are currently being put on Russia aren't really having any real effect. I mean, how much worse is it now than what it was, a month ago? It's not really. I can't see that having much effect. Then you've got countries like Australia, whose leaders think, well, we'll jump into this. We're going to ratchet up the sanctions that Australia has on Russia. The Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade listed us as being 94th on the list of countries that do trade with Russia, which roughly rounded means that we are responsible for 0.0% of the trade that Russia does. I mean, what's the point of that? Like, what? Like, it's just silly, It's just politicians in Western countries thinking that they're going to make a good, speech to their people. So, the really interesting thing here is the only way to cut off, income for Russia is to sanction their energy exports. And some of their agricultural exports, but most predominantly their energy exports. Secondly, their mining exports, such as nickel and copper and all those other metals that they export and refine. Anybody want to do that? I mean, coming out of the pandemic, it's going to hurt Western countries just as much, if not more, than what it's going to hurt Russia. So I don't think Putin has too much to worry about. But as far as the economic impact, I think that this has destabilized the markets a little bit. I think people are a little bit jittery. We did see that the interest rate yields came down quite precipitously the other day. But before the US opened, in the hour beforehand, most of that was given back, and now they're back to what they were last week. Same thing with the big increase in oil prices; it sort of dropped back down. It is still higher than it was, but it's dropped back down. We've also seen the same thing with gold dropping back down. So, look, where does this lead? I don't know, but I don't think it's going to be a flat market. I certainly think that the market's going to react, and I tend to think it'll probably overreact to small bits of information.
Well, I'd be interested to hear from the panel on this one, because you did mention something important, Shaquille, dealing with sanctions of energy. And this is where I have a real problem with the United States. because the thing is, they refuse to sanction energy because you'll love the reason. It's because oil prices are going to go up and people may have to pay $5 to $10 a gallon. Now think about this. Think about this. We're not going to lift a finger to sanction energy because, oh, God forbid that the people in the United States who drive SUVs and big stupid trucks have to pay more for gas. All right. So here's our thinking. Here's the reason I think
when you say big, the stupid people driving these trucks, like the food distribution trucks that go to Walmart and Whole Foods and all that. Yeah. I mean, if you live anywhere in the United States.
Yeah, in other words, the thing is, it can be transported more efficiently on trains. Trains, you can.
Well,
but
use diesel.
They're going. What's going to happen is the people who are the poorest. I know that those are the ones that you Democrats don't give a shit about. They're the ones that are going to suffer the most because everything that they buy is going to go up.
But if you really, really believe that the people in Ukraine are suffering, you'd be willing to put energy sanctions on Russia. We are not willing to give up our cars. We're not willing to give up our trucks. We'd rather let them die in Ukraine than have to give up our bloody automobiles. Okay. Well, that is very disingenuous by our politicians.
Just a second. You could say that about any other conflict that's going on in the world. You know, why should American people have to give up everything all the time when the rest of the world isn't prepared to do it? That's the first place. And secondly, let's just again talk about who you want to have give up. You're not talking about the rich people in America giving anything up. You're talking about the poorest people in America giving up their standard of living, struggling to be able to afford food, struggling to be able to drive a motor vehicle, struggling to be able to pay for electricity and gas and all those sorts of things. They're the people that you're going to hurt. And to say to them, well, look, I know you're hurting, but let's hurt you some more so that we in the United States can join with our allies and go and fight a fight that really doesn't have anything to do with us. That's a complicated issue. Sasha has enlightened us on this panel a bit more on those. We're never going to understand them.
A very quick question to you. What, in 1941, what Germany had to do with United States? Why United States declared a war on Germany? Can you tell me? And
well,
why?
Because Japan
were suffering. People couldn't buy enough goods.
I'll answer you, Sasha. The United States didn't want to. The United States had said repeatedly that they weren't going to get involved in a European conflict.
That's right.
And that was the prevalent view of the American people.
That's
right.
But
after Pearl Harbor, after certain events had occurred, after the United States was kind of forced into it, that's when they finally responded. So I don't think that's a good analysis.
We never declared war against Germany. We never declared war against Germany. We declared war against Japan. Germany declared war against us.
Right.
We never declared war against
Germany. What I'm saying this, Shaquille, if you want that position, then why are we bothering with Ukraine at all? We shouldn't do anything. No sanctions, no anything. Say, Russia, just go ahead and take Ukraine. We don't care.
Nick, what I'm saying is, I think it's a bit insulting to those families who are struggling to get by. There's already supply chain issues that are affecting everybody in the world, but it appears to be more pronounced in the United States. You already have record rates of inflation. Mm-hmm. Then you've got coupled on top of that this identity politics nonsense that goes on, which seeks to further isolate and make it more difficult for the everyday person to be able to survive and build their lives back to where they were. And then you want to jump up and say, well, the American people just don't want to give up this or that. Yeah. Why would they? Who would?
Because why are they entitled? Why are you entitled to burn energy here in the United States? Where's the
but Nick, speaking of energy, I just talked to a friend of mine yesterday that's in California.
You got to come here someday.
Would you like the great American to say,
speaking of energy and
what we should do is live like with candles, go back to horse and carts, or live like
no, but you don't have to live with a gas
poverty experience in sub-Saharan
Africa. How many gas guzzling vehicles are sold on this?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, Nick, really quickly. Because speaking of that, I was talking to a friend of mine in actually they're in Arizona teaching yesterday, because actually I had to do a presentation on music yesterday, and I was talking to them because they're the ones that arranged it for me. And they told me that they had to drive to go to their home in Nevada, they had to go through California. So they went through Needles. And in Needles, gas right now is $6.25. So I can only imagine what it's going to go to now that this is happening, because this was before this whole attack happened, and it is up to $6.25 in one of the gas stations there in that part of Southern California, and things along those lines. I did have a quick question, just to
the solution is what's
I'd like
slightly
to,
different conversation.
I'd like to
I have
just,
a
I'd
quick
like to
question
come back to
ask
the,
Chris.
I'd like to
I had
come
a
back
quick
to
question to ask Chris.
why are Americans,
Hold on a
why
second.
are Americans
Okay, first of all, let's down to facts.
Fuel?
Down to
Why
facts.
should Americans be entitled to burn fuel and have all these gas guzzling SUVs?
SUVs, Shaquille.
If what you want to do,
SUVs and
hang on,
pickup
Chris,
trucks.
if what you want to do is get rid of cars, if what you want to do is to reduce the amount of cars on American roads, then your party should have the balls to say that to the American people openly.
I wish they did.
And let the American people decide. What you don't do is use that as an excuse as to why that Americans should be worse off and backdoor that policy in. If climate change is what you want to go for, then talk about that.
Well,
What's going on in the
France
Ukraine?
start.
No, I hear what you're saying and everything, and I'm not saying that with that conversation
SUVs and
shouldn't be
pickup
taking
trucks.
place.
And it's not selfish
ahead,
for
Mark.
American families
Yeah.
to complain if
I had
their
a quick
lifestyle
question to
is
ask that was on another part of the world, because it's actually a part of the world that Chris should know really well, and I hadn't even thought about this, the fact that one of these dictators may be getting ready to come back to power, because, you know, we're talking about different parts of the world where dictators have taken part in everything. I know there was a big protest in celebration of the Philippines, where people gathered to celebrate the anniversary of the People Power uprising against the late dictator Ferdinando Marcos and everything. And now I'm understanding that, you know, there was a whole lot of money that was stolen during that time, and some of the people are asking for that money to come back, because they've got 3.4 billion that was recovered, but apparently that family had 10 billion that they siphoned off in real estate, jewelry, and artwork, including some artwork by Picasso and Monet. But now there seems to be a very strong possibility that the son may be taken over. So we may be having a return to that government and everything. So I was just wondering, as a former military person, what your thought is about that, because they are saying that Marcos Jr. is actually leading.
You know, it's interesting because I was alive, I was around, I was in the military when Aquino was coming off that plane and ended up getting assassinated because he was running against Marcos. And, you know, Marcos, I had nothing to do with that. Really, that's kind of funny because he was shot literally as he was coming off the plane to challenge you and I think it was his wife who ended up getting the presidency after that. The Philippines are a very strong ally. That's the problem. That's an issue. The Philippines are a very strong ally. They are an Eastern, Eastern power. They do a lot of things for us from the standpoint of base aspects, intelligence, that type of thing. They're very, very big on that. So we always try to have this tightrope between, well, we really don't want, the Shah of Iran is a perfect example of somebody, hey, we need this country. So we're going to kind of put up with the secret police and whatever else just to kind of make sure that we have our intelligence stuff there. But basically what happens is that we sometimes support dictators so that we say, well, that's our national will to be able to do the things we need to do to defend the country. So if that means we have to support this person, we do. East Africa, a perfect example of somebody, I was DOD, I was in intelligence. I was in East Africa for a while. There was this country, I can't mention the name of it. The guy, the leader in charge was in this great, big, gigantic mansion. A block away from that mansion were people literally dying of starvation. Guy didn't care. He was, he was making millions off the U.S. government, and he was fine with it. So it was basically he was a dictator. I mean, he was elected 90% or whatever. Cut me a break. Guy's a dictator. So basically, we support that because we need that real estate to be able to continue our operations against bad people, right? So it's this weird situation we often have from that standpoint. But that's why the Philippines are important, and that's why I'm sure the U.S. government will talk to Marcos Jr. if he attains power and says, "Look, this is what we're dealing with. We'll give you a certain amount of money. Whatever you do with that money is up to you." So it's that type of thing. So that's that side of the world, and
Yeah.
it's pretty important to us.
Well, where's the other superpower in this? China, besides supporting this invasion.
Oh, let me tell you.
Yes.
I'll tell you what's going to happen with China. This is me. This is my opinion. But everyone thinks they're going to go into Taiwan. They are not going to invade Taiwan. And it's really interesting. People sit there and go, "Oh, Christian, I'm telling you, they're not going to do it." Here's what they're going to do. They're going to take the islands in the South China Sea. They have the Chinese Navy is really, really strong. They're going to encircle Taiwan, and they are going to put that island under siege. And they're just going to wait. And every jet that comes in that's not accounted for, they're going to shoot it down. And they're going to shoot. I mean, and unless the U.S. does something, there's going to be a lot of jets that are going to be shot down on its way to Taiwan. They're going to stop all trade in and out of Taiwan, and they are going to siege this island into submission. They're not going to shoot one bullet in Taiwan. And they're going to sit there, because I'll tell you one thing about the Chinese.
They'll sit for 100 years. They'll sit there for 100 years.
Oh, at least they don't care. They'll sit there.
They don't
Taiwan
care. But see, the thing is, how they're playing the cards is this. It's real simple. First of all, they hate America. I mean, there's a whole group, not to say all of them, but there's a whole group over there that have been indoctrinated that America is like the evil empire. Okay, so you just have to go to Understanding China. I recommend that website. Go to Understanding China. It's actually not a website. It's actually a Facebook group. And just listen to what they have to say about the United States of America. We're the evil empire. All right. With that in mind, what's going on here? The real problem with Ukraine, in these people's opinion, it's the U.S. that caused the trouble of Ukraine. In other words, it's our imperialism.
I agree.
I think
the real threat in this isn't Ukraine. The real threat is sitting right there. It's China. It's not Russia. Russia is what who McCain used to describe Russia. Here it is. It is just a big gas station. That's all Russia is. It goes just a big gas station with oil and gas. Okay, but a real country, a real superpower is China, and that's the one we should really be looking at. And that's the reason we have to make sure that he doesn't take Ukraine, because it makes the West look weak. The West being Western Europe, the United States, and who do we look weak to? It's nobody but China, because Russia eventually, they're going to play their cards out. Their army, yeah, they got nukes, but they only have 900,000. They may not even beat Ukraine. Ukraine's got an army of 361,000. If the Ukrainians fight the 900,000, it's going to be tough. That's not going to be an easy country to take over. And it really depends on what you said earlier, Chris, the will of the people. If the people of Ukraine decide we're not going to let Russia take us over, they're going to lose this one. And it's going to be a very interesting bloodbath.
Well, we ought to treat it like Kuwait. We ought to sit there and say, okay, look, a foreign power just invaded that country. We should treat it exactly like Kuwait. Go to the UN and say, look, you have 48 hours to get your forces out of there, or by God, we are going to put forces into Ukraine and we're going to beat you back. And you know something? You do that to Putin. You sit there and say, 48 hours, you son of a gun. You're going to take your people and you're going to get them out of there.
So why are we not doing that? Why are we? So let me interject. Why are we not doing that? I mean, we did that. That's a great point, Chris. And here's the problem. This is making President Biden look weak. We're just using sanctions, and he's not doing that. Now, Putin is being very aggressive in his talks, saying that, don't forget, I have nuclear weapons and everyone's going to freak out about World War III. But
listen, we have nukes too, dude. Okay. Ours
I don't think there's any need for us to talk about nukes at this stage. Nobody's threatened nuclear weapons at this stage. So
what do we do if we put troops?
Cold War and the Cuban Missile Crisis. What I'll say, Steve, is it's not this that makes Biden look weak. Biden already looked weak, and that's probably something that precipitated this, was the fact that he looked weak.
That's because he left Afghanistan. He left Afghanistan. The way he left Afghanistan made him look weak.
2014 Crimea. That's what started this whole thing.
That also made the U.S. look weak. In other words,
Biden's part of that.
He walked into Crimea and just took it and nobody said anything. It was like, okay, I guess that's okay. So the thing is, well, next we'll just take regions of Ukraine. And then on top of it, you leave Afghanistan, you shrug your shoulders.
And he was vice president of the United States at that time.
Yes, he was.
He was. And so does the United States want to be a superpower or super wimp? Now, if you follow the super wimp theory, we would say, well, we don't want our gas prices to go up, so let's let them go take Ukraine. Okay. Well, if that's the case, then why even bother sending troops? Pull all our troops out of Europe. Let them take Ukraine. Then they not only don't have to, and don't give any sanctions. This way I can live my beautiful lifestyle on my golf course. I don't have to worry about it. Oh my
Well, you know
Lord.
something, you may have something there, Nick. I mean, Joe Paterno said, "Hey, why don't you just take away the helmets from people that play NFL football? This way, they won't hit heads with each other."
Yeah, right.
You know, I mean, so maybe that's the way to do it: is pull all our troops out and let Germany and France and the rest of those, say, "Hey, you're either going to protect yourselves or not.
I just
don't
don't
care."
get. I just don't get this policy of defending because energy is the biggest export that Russia has. Take the card away from them. Okay. And in other words, put the hammer bloody down on it. If you're going to do it right. Rather than we'll do everything except energy because that's going to raise the prices on people that are paying gas for their big SUVs and F-350s. Give me a break.
It's only 20%. 20% of the vehicles on U.S. roads today are pickup trucks. 11% are SUVs.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, so what? They have to pay more. They can afford it. If you can afford an F-150 or an F-350 in the U.S. or an SUV, you can afford to pay more in gas.
Again, it's so interesting, you know. Apparently, the Republicans don't care about the poor people. They don't care about the black people. And now, all of a sudden, who gives a shit about them?
What does that have to do with poor or black? Why are you bringing race and economic inequality? I'm dealing with whether or not you have the will to fight or you're just a wimpy fighter. Okay, if you're will to fight, you're willing to pay extra more.
Yeah, these decisions. Was it Thomas Sowell? I think it is Thomas Sowell that made the comment that there is nothing more stupid than allowing decisions to be made by people who bear no cost for those.
Let me tell you real. Let me tell you.
And they wouldn't bear any cost. They don't want to bear cost. There are hybrid cars available. They could buy them. Okay, so it's your choice. If you want to spend your money on these huge SUVs and throw it down the rat hole, that's your decision. That's your freedom.
More expensive. Well,
they made that decision prior to this nonsense.
Yeah, true.
Too bad.
True story, right? Social Security Administration. I'm sitting on a panel, and they're sitting there saying, "Okay, we're going to do from now on. We're going to do debit cards. We're going to send people debit cards instead, for their benefits, and it's only going to cost them $1 every time they use the debit cards." And I said, "Wait a minute, what are you talking about? You're going to take their Social Security benefits, charge them $1 every time they use the debit card that has their benefits on it?" And they said, "Yeah, we need it for the administrative costs." Well, I said, "Wait a minute. There are some people that's all they live on. If you charge them $1 every time they use it, and they go in and get they have to go into the grocery store 5 times to get something, then that's $5. That's eggs. That's milk. It's a screw job.
Chris, it's worse than that. Okay, not only is Social Security going broke in 2034, if you're rich, you don't pay the Social Security taxes, and poor people don't even know that. Once you make more than $147,500,
that's right. Yeah,
your Social Security tax goes away. It goes away. Why? Because we pander to the rich in the United States. All right. Now, there's some rich people go, "Oh, but the rich are job creators. You don't want them to pay extra taxes." Baloney. The thing is, they should be paying all of
because in the really high tax countries of the world, there are so many billionaires starting up new businesses. I mean, how many new businesses have been started up in Sweden or Norway or Finland?
We don't want to talk about IKEA, do we? No.
How long have they been around? Yeah. How long has IKEA been around?
Well, talk about
where are the founders living? Are they living in Sweden? Oh no, they've moved out of Sweden because of the taxes. So
speaking of taxes and people being punished, hold on a second.
We need to bring back Eisenhower's 90%.
Now, Nick, what I'll say is if 150 years ago or 170 years ago, the United States thinks that it's appropriate to have a war or a standoff on the border of Canada with the British over a pig, because a pig that was someone's pig in America ran across the border and the British shot them. If that was enough for America to go to war, I think some of these other slights should be enough for America to go, yeah, we better do something.
Yeah, but it's not taxes on the poor we're talking about, Shaquille. We're talking about tax the rich. Hello. Yeah. And the thing, tell me why they don't get they get a pass.
Hey,
Tell me
Nick,
why
are
that
not
Elon
the
hold
Musk
on a second.
not,
Hold on a
doesn't
second.
are not
pay as
responsible
much
for the
in Social
deprivations of
Security
the poor.
taxes.
Go ahead, Mark.
Hey, Nick.
Are not responsible for the
Come on.
deprivation of the poor.
Hold on a
The
second.
rich already pay all of the tax in the United States. 50%, the bottom 50% of the United States pays nothing in taxes. It's an absurd system.
They do. It's called Social Security and Medicare taxes. So get off your high horse. All right.
Hey, Nick.
That
Hey,
goes back to them. That goes
hold
back
on.
to them, right? More than what they contribute.
They pay
Hey.
more in a percentage than the rich people do. Go look
Hey,
at your
Nick.
stats someday. Rich
Hey, Nick.
people pay less.
You want to talk to
Then
me
the
about
Nick, hold on one second. Hold on one second.
Yeah.
Apparently, the rich are actually paying something in a major decision today. Well, maybe not the rich, but at least a rich organizations, because it just came out today that North Carolina is going to receive $750 million, but a lot of other states are going to be getting it as well from a multi-state settlement finalizing with 4 major pharmaceutical companies over their role in the national opioid crisis. So we have had this opioid crisis, and 3 distributors, Cardinal, McGisson, and AmerisourceBergen, as well as Johnson & Johnson, have committed to paying a total of $26 billion, I did say billion with a B, after 52 states and territories signed into a settlement, which has been 3 years in the making.
Yeah.
So apparently these companies made billions of dollars while millions of
I'm
Americans
sure
got hooked on opioids, and now they are actually, sounds like they're going to be at least
That's
paying.
sad. That's
not a tax mark.
It's worse than that. These people that are behind it are a billionaire family that we're supposed to worship. I don't
you
worship
leave the
those
P.O.D.
billionaire
family alone.
families. Oh yeah, that's what you said.
Leave them alone.
They suck the blood out of the average American by pushing opioid drugs, and to get the settlement through, you have to refuse to be. You have to have a indemnity where they can't be sold, so they keep their $1 billion net worth. You can't drive them down to where they belong, which is zero.
I am glad to see
maybe
that a lot of the money.
Maybe what you
Hold on a
could
second,
do,
Shaquille.
They
I
should
am glad to see.
what they should do is
blame
arrest
that
that family,
cartel.
stick them in jail where they
blame
I
that
am glad to
cartel
see.
called
Hold on
the
a second,
American Medical
Shaquille.
Association.
Shaquille, I am glad to
Blame
see
them
that a
for
lot of the
some
money
these
is going into treatment, because they said that more than 637 billion. Million, about 85% of the total will go to local communities in the state, meaning the state here, to support treatment, recovery, harm reduction, and other strategies to address the opioid epidemic. And I'm hoping that other states will be doing the same with their part of the money, and the remaining 15% will go to the state to be used for the same purpose. So it does sound like at least some of the money is going to be going toward treatment, because we do know that this is a major issue.
The name of the family, it's called the Sackler family. Okay, they wanted the $4.5 billion deal, but they wanted to shield them from opioid lawsuits. Don't shield them from bloody anything. That family conspired to push opioids on the average American. They should be arrested and thrown in jail. But with $4.5 billion, you can afford the best attorneys to keep your little butt out of jail. But on top of that, what they want is a settlement so that they can't lose their money and they get able to keep their billion. But Shaquille, you'll worship them because they're billionaires.
I don't worship anybody. I don't worship anybody.
I don't worship
Speaking of not worshiping anybody,
you want to blame these people for the misgivings and the mismanagement.
I have guillotines
of the
for
AMA, of the AMA, and of the FDA in the United States. Look, we have the same problem here in Australia. The AHPRA and the health service NIA in the United Kingdom, they're all the same. You get lobbied by medical associations that run a profiteering racket in their cartels that they have. Dentists are exactly the same as well. Okay, and the pharmaceuticals come in there and lobby them. They lobby government. That's why it takes so long to get life-saving medications approved in the United States.
No, I agree, but I do want to get to one of your favorite topics, identity politics, because I know it's one of your favorite ones, Shaquille and everything. And apparently we have somebody that has been officially nominated to be the Supreme Court Justice, that being Kitty Anjay Brown Jackson. And apparently she has said at least one of her decisions was one that was favorable to Mr. Trump about the wall, because apparently at one point in her whole work that she has done, she actually did come out in favor and sided with him about the border wall with Mexico, because she was going to waive more than 24 environmental laws so that he could build a segment of that wall. Now, she did have another ruling that was a blow to him as the whole thing was going on about the congressional impeachment probe, because she did say that presidents are not kings in one of her decisions and all of that. And apparently she clerked for the person that she may replace. And if she gets in office, she would be the second youngest behind the person that has been recently nominated, that being Amy Coney Barrett, who is now 50. And if she is confirmed, she is now 51. So maybe she'd be 51 or 52, depending on how long the confirmation took. And she is currently sitting on the U.S. Courts of Appeals for the District of Columbia, to which she was confirmed last June. And she's been a federal public defender and is a sentencing expert, having served as vice chair and commissioner on the U.S. Sentencing Commission. So that's a little bit about the person that has been recently nominated, as Mr. Biden did say he was going to nominate an African-American woman, and that is what he has done. So he has put her on to the whole thing, and she would be the first African-American woman to serve on the highest court in the nation.
Good for her. Hey, by the way, Shaquille, I found a friend.
That was incredible.
Your friend in Australia's name is Greg Coffey. He's an Australian hedge fund manager based in London. He's known as the Wizard of Oz during his time with GLG Partners and Moore Capital Management. So anyway, that's his name if you ever run into him. Greg Coffey.
Yeah, we all know. We all know each other.
The Wizard of Oz. I thought you might know the wizard.
Well, I managed to retire before he did. Earlier, he retired at 41. I managed to do it at 37.
Oh, he did. And he went to London. Sounds familiar.
That's right. I mean, he made a few more billion than I did, but
the good news.
So let's come back to his head won't be on the French. Let's come back to your racist president. So
no, he's racist.
What is she like? What is going to be the achievement? That she's the first African American woman to be nominated amongst a pool of only African American women. So, in other words, the black community is viewed by white Democrats and rich white liberals as not being able to compete on their own merits. They're not intelligent enough, experienced enough to have been able to make it by themselves. They instead needed to have their own group separated out and then somebody picked from that group.
That's
now,
because that's what Biden decided to do. He decided to put it out there.
That's a good thing, Mark. If you think that's a good thing, hey, that's absolutely fine, Mark. No problems.
I'm hoping that she's my understanding that she is actually very much a worthy person to have the job.
Yeah.
I think that she's a worthy person to have the job from what I've read about her and what I've heard about her. And I've also talked to some other people.
Mark, you don't do what you always do and deliberately miss my point. I didn't say that she wasn't going to be a good candidate to do the job.
No, I got your
what
point.
achievement was there?
And I said
you excluded 96% of the population of the United States from having that job. That is one of the most, in my opinion, it's fine if you support it. Okay, we're all entitled to our own opinions. But I personally think that is one of the most insulting and demeaning things that the Democrats could do to people of color, is to tell us that we are not capable of being able to compete fairly with everybody else in our communities.
And what was your thoughts when Clarence Thomas or Thurgood Marshall, even more to the point, got appointed? Because Thurgood Marshall was appointed as the first African-American male to the Supreme Court at a time when race and other things were still very much an important part of the conversation. And believe it or not, it's still an important part of the conversation, whether it's around gentrification, whether it's around banking things that are going on, whether it's around a number of other things that are taking place in our society that are race-related, that sometimes come into the Supreme Court. And I have no problem with this person coming onto the Supreme Court and bringing a different perspective and a more fair perspective. There was a long time.
Why is it more fair?
There was a long time that the Supreme Court was strictly older white males. I mean, nothing but.
When you say a more fair perspective than what?
I think you should have a balanced court. I think you should have a balanced court.
Name for me a decision that has been made in the last 25 years.
Diversity. I think you need diversity in the courts, and I do not want a bunch of white guys. I'm sorry. I want a bunch of white guys in wigs sitting up there making the decisions. I don't want
because the color of their skin being wrong would automatically.
I want a court that is much more diverse, that is able to talk about the issues of diversity when they come up there. That's what I want. I don't know what you want.
Mark. the role of the Supreme Court is not to adjudicate matters of diversity. The role of the Supreme Court is to adjudicate matters of legal matters as to how they relate to the Constitution. That is the sole and only, well, it's the primary purpose. I won't say it's the sole. It's the primary purpose of the Supreme Court. Now, you have just given this huge big diatribe about why diversity is good. Okay, fine. You say diversity is good, but then you also said, which is what I asked you, and then you just went back to diversity. You said to have a fairer perspective. A fairer perspective than what? Do you want to name for me a decision made in the last 20 years by the Supreme Court that you don't agree with? I can name some, but do you want to name for me a decision that you don't agree with? And then, if you can name it, do you then want to tell me that this candidate, had that candidate been on the Supreme Court at that time, would have made a different decision based on the interpretation of the Constitution?
I do see what you're saying about the Constitution and the constitutional rules and everything, but I do not want
I take it that's a no. I take it that's a no. I take it that's a no. So you want a fairer perspective, but you can't even name a decision the Supreme Court's made to do. Let's even isolate it down. A Supreme Court decision that was made that affects people of color. Do you want to name one of those that you think the Supreme Court got wrong, that you all of a sudden need this person to make a decision on?
We can talk about some things to do with banking. We can talk about what went on with the whole black farmers and everything. So we can talk about a couple of cases that I think were done wrong that may have a different perspective if this particular judge is on there and everything. And they will study the case. They will look at the case on the constitutional grounds.
The last 20 years,
and I understand that what you're saying on the constitutional grounds. They will look on the constitutional grounds. I'm hoping that they will be, because there are different styles of lawyers and judges as well. There are some that are more constitutional based. There are some that are more of the activism kind of style. But there are different styles of judges. Just like there are different styles of people in general. So, like I said, I have no problem, and I'm learning more about her. I'm not going to make a statement that say which way she's going to go, one way or the other. I just brought up a little bit of her facts.
No, I think Shaquille.
Why then assume that she's going to be fairer?
I think Shaquille's making the point
because she has a certain skin color. Why make that assumption?
When Kennedy nominated Thurgood Marshall,
right,
and when George H.W. Bush nominated Clarence Thomas, they did not go out and say, we're going to nominate a black male to the Supreme Court. That's the difference.
I agree with him on that. And I said that was a mistake. I said that in my mind, that was a tactical mistake. And I would agree with that was a tactical mistake. I would not sit out there and telegraph what I was going to do in a move.
Right.
Y'all always talking about chess. I'm not a master chess player. I played just pickup games here and there when I was a kid. But even as a child, I'm not going to telegraph moves. And that's even in any sports activity. And I do think that he telegraphed what he was going to do. And that's the worst mistake you can make in any kind of gamemanship of any sort, is to telegraph what you're going to do. I think it's actually going to make it harder for this person to get nominated, no matter what their skill sets are.
I think she's going to get on. I don't think there's going to be a problem. I think the main thing is going to be the minute that she goes against what the black community thinks is a good judgment, that they're going to sit there and say, well, she's an Oreo. She doesn't do what we want her to do. She doesn't go the way that we want her to go. We didn't get put on the Supreme Court. I'm scared that you're not going to do that, Mark.
One only has to have a look at the vile things that are said about Justice Clarence Thompson, right? Thomas. The things that are said about him are absolutely appalling. Okay, and why? Because he doesn't believe in certain things, or he doesn't make certain rulings that the political left want him to make. This entire thing, part of it, but he's also recently got in the news. Is supposed to sit there above and outside of politics. That's why they're nominated for life. And here you have one Supreme Court justice who's essentially been bullied into retiring early to keep the Democrats happy before they lose the midterms, so that they can nominate somebody of their choosing. And then after the majority of the country is rejecting wokeism and are saying that they've had enough, including people on the left, the Democrats double down and say, you know what? We are going to exclude 96% of the available candidates for this job. Look how great we are. Look how progressive we are. I think it's dreadful. She may well be a great candidate. I don't know enough about her. But
Yeah,
I
that's
am
what
not
I'm saying.
going
I'm
to.
saying
I'm
I'm
not
learning
going to,
more as
without
well.
knowing
And
anything
like I said,
about
that's what I
her.
just
Yeah.
said. I'm learning more about her as a
But
candidate
what
because y'all
I'm
talk
not going
about
to
even
do,
the
but what
social
I'm not
justice and
going
y'all
to
talk
do
about
is I'm
Clarence
not going
Thomas
to.
and everything. Clarence Thomas is now in
What
trouble because apparently his
if I can
wife
finish my
wrote
sentence?
a
What
whole
I'm not
piece
going to
about
do is I'm not going to
defense
do what you've
of
done.
Donald Trump. And because of that defense, people are saying, and she did it in social media, she did it in a couple of other places, but she came out in defense. And now because of that, people are saying that Justice Thomas should be thinking about retiring or resigning because of some things that his wife said. Now, she is definitely a member of the conservative ranks. Some people would say that she's an avid Trump supporter or maybe even a Tea Party person in those lines. But I don't think that he should be having to be held accountable for what her words are. That's her words and everything. I'm sure that they talk to each other in their homes and their bedrooms, but that's their conversation and everything. I don't think that because she writes something that he needs to be put out. And I was not a fan of Clarence Thomas when he was appointed, but I'm also not going to say that because his wife is saying certain things and making certain comments that he needs to be held accountable for his wife's words.
So I'll just finish the sentence. What I'm not going to do is I'm not going to, without knowing anything about her or her cases, assume that because she's not white, that she's going to make fairer decisions or better decisions. And I think that
and I even gave examples of two cases where she went against Trump. I talked about the Trump, and that was based on an article I saw in Market Watch. But they gave two examples. One was her making a judgment that was against Trump because of things going on. But then she also did one that was in favor of the Mexico wall and things of that nature. So apparently she was doing what judges are supposed to do. She looked at the case and she found that there were elements of what he was saying about the building of that part of the wall that made sense. So she came in judgment in favor of that situation. Like I said, I'd love to read more about that and find out what her reasoning was behind that. But from what I read, it sounds like a fair assumption. It also sounds like a fair assumption that she will look at the entirety of whatever cases come before her and make a decision that is constitutionally sound, as you just said, and also sound in the nature of the law. That's what I'm thinking she will do. And I don't think that that is something that anybody should doubt. But like I said, I'm sure there will be people that will attack the nomination because it was a nomination that he, like I said, telegraphed what he was going to say and do.
Steve?
Where did Steve go? Oh, Steve's here.
Yeah, you love me. Well, listen, it's been a great show. I wanted to just say that as we want to thank our panel for bringing up some very tough issues to discuss about Ukraine. We pray on behalf of our family at Pod TV. We pray for all of the families of this terrible tragedy in Ukraine. We'll be having some research on maybe some sites that we can go to contribute some dollars to help the Ukrainian people. And I just really I want to pray for them and pray for Russia that we can address this crisis, a global crisis. And we'll be back next week to continue our discussion. We didn't talk about other things in the world, but we really wanted to spend the hour today talking about Ukraine. We'll be back next week to update you on the crisis and maybe bring in some foreign policy analysts as well. Thank you. Have a great day.
Yeah, sounds good. And like I said, we're going to get on out of here. I did not get to the Black History person. I've got one more today and the 28th, but the one for today will actually be somebody that was very much a advocate of civil rights, very much an advocate of using the arts. Speaking of, as I did when I was talking about the Ukrainians, the arts to talk about political issues and to talk about justice and things of that nature. So if you do not know the works of Paul Robeson, please go back and study that great individual, because he was an amazing performer and all of that, but he was also an activist as well. So definitely I would urge people to go and look up Paul Robeson and what Paul Robeson was all about. So on that note, I'm going to get on out of here. I think I've got to bounce on over and help Kim with the show that Sasha and Chris are doing, which is a whole further discussion around the Ukraine and all of that, because I think y'all are doing it twice a week, and one of those is on Friday. So I've got to go make sure that she's got that going on the other side. But right now, let's get on out of here.
See y'all.